Honor. At this time, the defense calls Jesse Duran to the stand.
Before you get started, I just want just to be mindful, particularly on, I guess, on this side, this is just the lay of the room, that they can make sure they can see.
Yes, Your Honor. Keep you.
Yeah.
Please introduce yourself, spelling your last name for the record.
My name is Jesse Duran. Duran is spelled D-U-R. And
Jesse, how old are you?
I'm currently 15 years old.
Jesse, tell the members of the jury a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm from Midlands. I've lived here all my life. And probably always will.
Jesse, why are you here today?
When I was 11, I was playing with a gun with my friend Sydney at her house, and there was an accident, and Sydney died.
Jesse, we're going to get into that in just one moment, but why don't you tell the members of the jury a little bit about Sydney Park?
Sydney was my best friend. Sydney was that one person that I really had that I could talk to, that I could tell anything. We had so much in common. We loved to play video games together. She was so nice.
Jesse, I understand that this is difficult and at any moment you need a second. Just let me know, okay? Now, Jesse, earlier you said that you were playing with a gun at Sydney Park's house.
Yeah.
Where was that gun, to your knowledge?
It was in her parents' bedroom.
Now, was that gun locked up?
Yeah, it was in a safe.
Jesse, how did you know that the gun was in the bedroom in a safe?
Well, Sydney told me. I honestly had no idea about the gun until she said something.
Now, Jesse, you said that the gun was in a safe, right?
Yeah.
Now, how did you two get to the safe, get the gun out of the safe?
There was a combination that Sydney and I got together. She said the numbers. I typed them into the safe.
Jesse, I want to talk about this combination. Where was it?
It was in a drawer in a guest bedroom in their house that I know Mrs. Park used as an office sometimes too.
Now, to get to this drawer, was the office door locked?
No,
Did the drawer have a lock on it?
no.
So on August 18, 2010, what did you guys do after you guys got the combination?
Like I said, we opened the safe. Sydney, she read off the numbers, and I punched the code into the safe's keypad.
What did you see when you opened up the safe?
It was a gun and a box of bullets.
When you got that gun, was the gun loaded?
Not at first. It was empty when we picked it up.
You said at first. Did you two load the gun?
Yeah. Sydney opened up the cylinder, and I put a bullet in the chamber.
Now, Jesse, after this happened, what did you and Cindy do?
We started being silly. We posed with the gun, pointed it at the lamps. And then Sydney pointed it at me.
What did you do when Cindy pointed the gun at you?
I told her it wasn't funny.
Now, after you had done this, what did you and Cindy do?
We went into the living room and started watching cartoons. But I didn't like what was on. So I asked if I could see the gun.
Did Cindy give you the gun?
Yep.
Jesse, what happened?
Sydney tossed it. I tried to catch it. I tried so hard.
What happened, Jesse?
It hit my hand and there was this loud bang. I closed my eyes and I screamed. And when I opened it up, there was just blood. And Cindy was lying on the ground.
Jesse, I understand that this is hard for you, but did you mean to shoot Cindy?
No. Cindy was my best friend. No, I would have never shot her, Mrs. Park. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I just want my best friend back. I just want my best friend back.
Thank you. At this time, I have no further questions.
Cross.
Yes,
Jesse, do you need a moment?
I know this is hard for you, but I'm just going to ask you a couple questions about the morning of August 18th, 2010.
Okay.
So you and Cindy Park were good friends, correct?
Best friend.
And on the morning of August 18th, you went over to her house, correct?
Yeah.
And you knew that there was a gun at the park home, right?
Yes, Sydney told me there was a gun.
So you and Cindy got the gun out of the safe,
Yes.
but the gun was not loaded when it was originally gotten out of the safe, is this correct?
That's correct. Sydney and I loaded it.
But after the gun was gotten out of the safe, you loaded it, is this right?
Yeah.
You
We
put-
loaded it.
You put a bullet in the gun, is this correct?
Yeah, that Sydney had opened the cylinder. I placed the bullet in the gun.
I know, could you please? Can I go to the witness?
You may.
Mr. Duran, do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Duran, did you own a smartphone at the time when Sydney died?
Yeah, I just got it.
And did your smartphone have internet access?
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you remember doing these searches on the morning of August 18th, 2010?
Yeah. I mean, they're here.
Your Honor, I now move that the plaintiff exhibit a screenshot of Jesse Duran's phone be moved into evidence.
Objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
So moved.
Okay, now, Mr. Duran, I'm just going to be referring to the document that you have there. Now, on that document, It says that you Google searched how to load a revolver. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you knew how to load a revolver before you went over to Sidney Parks' house. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm not putting the witness. Okay, so Mr. Duran, after the gun was loaded, you and Sidney began to play with it. Is this right?
Yeah, we pointed it at random objects, posed with it.
And then after you began to play with it, you went into the living room, right?
Yeah.
And then when you went into the living room, you asked her to hand you the gun. Is this right?
I asked if I could see it.
And she tossed it to you, correct?
Yes.
Do you need a moment? And you say that the gun went off by accident in your hands. Is this right?
I tried to catch it. It just, there was a bang.
Now, your mother is Miss Hayden Duran, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
And she told you that guns were dangerous. Is this right?
Yeah, she did.
And she warned you that guns could kill people. Is this correct?
Yes.
Question closing counsel. I'm not pushing this. And Mr. Duran, do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
And is this your handwritten statement from the morning of August 18th, 2010?
Yes,
And is this your handwriting?
it is.
Your Honor, I now move that Jesse Duran's handwritten statement be offered as plaintiff on Exhibit 3, I believe, into evidence.
Any objections?
No objections, Your Honor.
Okay, now I'm going to be referring to this document, and I want you to read solemnly as I read aloud. It says, "No one ever told me."
Objection, Your Honor. Accumulative, this document has just been entered into evidence. It is a waste of the court's time to have her read off everything that this document says.
Your Honor, I'm simply referring to the document as to statements that Jesse Duran said himself. He identified the document as his handwriting, and I feel that they are very relevant in court today, and I'm going to use them to his credibility.
Do you need to read the document that's already in evidence?
I'm just referring to one sentence in the document.
Overruled.
I'm just going to read one sentence for you. It says, "No one ever told me how dangerous real guns could be." I'm actually referring to another sentence. Just one more sentence.
Again, objection to cumulative. This is already in evidence. It doesn't need to be read off.
I misspoke. It was two sentences instead of one.
I'm gonna overrule.
Okay. It says, "Hayden Duran told me that real guns are just like the ones in the video games."
It does.
Now, Mr. Duran, you just told me that your mother Hayden told you how dangerous real guns could be.
She did.
So did you lie when you wrote that statement?
I panicked when I wrote that statement. I didn't know what was going on. I just had to watch my best friend lay in a pool of her own blood. And I didn't know what to do. I honestly put down the first things that came to my mind.
Now, Mr. Duran, after the incident, you did not call 911, is this correct?
Not that I can remember, no.
In fact, you called your mother, is this correct?
I don't know.
I'm not touching this. Mr. Duran, mother is Miss Hayden Duran, correct? But in your contact list, you refer to her as Voldemort. Is this right?
Oh, I was 11. I thought it was funny. Yeah.
Now, is this a screenshot of your phone?
It is.
Your Honor, I now move that this be moved into evidence. It's a screenshot of Jesse Duran's call log.
Any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, so you called your mother directly after the incident, is this correct?
Yeah.
And you would say that the call was around 20 seconds max, is that right?
Objection relevant, Your Honor.
I'm simply asking the witness how long the phone call was he made to his mother directly after the incident.
Your Honor, they have to prove intent that Jesse Duran intentionally shot Sydney Park. Whether the call he made to his mother was 20 seconds long does not make any fact more or less likely in today's case.
May be heard?
Yes.
I think the fact that the witness did not call 911 and the fact that he called his mother directly after the incident could help to go show his intent in this process.
Your Honor, we're here to talk about what happened at the time of the accident. What happened after the accident does not prove intent, Your Honor. Therefore, it is irrelevant.
Anything else?
I think the fact that the call was made directly after his best friend died is very relevant in today's case because it shows his actions immediately following the incident, which would also have been changed if it were an accident.
Your Honor, and they have to prove intent, and none of this goes to any element that they have to prove in today's case. It does not tend to prove or disprove any element in their case that they're charging Jesse Duran with, so therefore it is irrelevant.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Ms. Richard Haynes. Okay, so immediately after the incident, you called your mother, is this right?
Called the first person who would know what to do.
And you informed her that Sydney Park had been hurt, is this right?
I don't remember what I told her. I told her what I needed to.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Can you redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Jesse, a few minutes ago, you said that you called your mom, isn't that right? Oh, why did you call your mom after this incident?
I didn't know who to call. I didn't know what to do, so I called the one person who probably would know, who told me. I didn't know what had just happened. It happened so fast. He was my best friend. Lost my best friend.
Thank you.
I have none, Your Honor.
Witness may need to- Defense may call their next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense calls Dr. Ash DeRosa to the stand. TC Sample for the defense. Have a seat.
You may.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury. Spelling your last name for the record.
My name is Dr. Ash DeRosa. DeRosa is D-E-R-O-S-A.
What do you do for a living?
I am currently a professor of public policy and management at Midland State University.
What education do you have that qualifies you for this position?
I do have a master's in public health from Tufts University, and also a medical doctorate from, I have a doctorate degree from Midland State in public policy and management.
How much experience do you have in your field?
I have 21 years of experience behind me in the research field as it relates to gun violence-related injuries. On top of that, I've also served as a professor at Midland State for about 12 years now.
I want to turn your attention now to today's case.
Okay.
How are you involved?
I was hired to assess the circumstances surrounding the weapon that was found in the Parks home as it related to the incident on August 18th of 2010.
Before you work in today's case, were you provided with sufficient facts and data?
Of course I was. I was provided with numerous statements, those of the babysitter Danny Brooks, as well as Andy Park and Hayden Duran. On top of that, a couple of exhibits that I was provided with as well, including the layout of the Park home, also the written combination to the gun safe, and also where that combination was stored in the home.
Did you use reliable principles and methods?
Yes, I utilized the principles and methods that have been instilled in me since day one in my training.
And did you use those principles and methods reliably to the facts of today's case?
Of course, I figure I teach them, I might as well utilize them myself.
Doctor, are you aware of cases involving children and firearms?
Yes, of course. There are numerous instances, in fact, where children and firearms mix, and it's very unfortunate. Children ages 10 to 14 are actually the most likely age group to die from gun-related injuries.
Why are children this age prone to die from these types of incidents?
There are 3 reasons, actually. The first is that children are very prone to be interested in firearms. The second is that children of that age very seldom have proper firearm safety training. And the last is that if they are exposed to firearms, they're likely to occur.
You said one of those factors, it was proper training.
Yes, that's very important.
From the evidence that you reviewed in today's case, were either children properly trained on how to properly handle a gun?
I found no evidence that either of the children involved in today's case were ever exposed to any kind of proper safety training in regards to firearms, and that makes it extremely likely that an accident was able to occur.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that when there is no training involved with children, it is much more likely that an accident is able to occur. It's very likely that children, especially in this age group, could mistakenly fire a firearm without intending to. If a person stumbles or trips, or they're tossing or trying to catch a gun, it's very likely that an accident can occur.
One of the other factors that lead to accidental discharges, you said, was the presence of guns.
Yes.
Now, from the facts that you reviewed, was there a gun present around these children?
Yes, I did find due to my research that there was a gun present in the Parks home, and due to the way that this weapon was stored, there was an accident that could have happened.
Well, where was that gun stored?
It was stored in a small combination safe in the Parks room, or in the bedroom of the home. The combination to that safe was stored in an unlocked file cabinet in the office.
Well, if the gun was stored in a safe, from the evidence you reviewed, how did 2 11-year-olds get a hold of it?
I did find evidence that Sydney Park, the deceased in this case, had access to the location where the combination was stored.
To your knowledge, when was Sydney aware of the location of the combination and the gun?
I found evidence that Sydney Park was aware of the location of the gun and the combination on August 18th of 2010.
Doctor, were you able to come to a conclusion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
I was able to, yes. Because the children were so interested in guns, I found that in both cases. The fact that the gun was so easily accessible to the children makes it much more likely that an accident was able to occur on August 18th.
Thank you for your time, Dr. DeRosa. At this point, no further questions.
Cross?
Yes, Your Honor.
May I proceed?
Okay.
Now, Dr. DeRosa, your research is focused on gun-related injuries and violence, correct?
Among other topics that has been heavily involved in my experience, yes.
You've taught classes and published published articles on the subject, correct?
I have, yes.
You've never actually fired a gun yourself.
I have not. I was exposed to a family member that was involved in a horrific accident as a child, and therefore I familiarized myself with the safety procedures, but I don't fire weapons, no.
So you have no first-hand knowledge of how a gun works, correct?
Firsthand, I have examined numerous weapons, I just don't pull the trigger on them. I have looked at several weapons in front of me, and I have extensive knowledge in how they work, so.
Now, your usual hourly rate is $250, correct?
It is, yes.
But in today's case, the defendant Hayden Duran is paying you $500, correct?
Yes.
And this is double your usual rate, correct?
Yes, it was a conversation that we had prior to me taking this case. I have decided to use that money to start a foundation for Sydney Park in her name.
And you also see this case as an opportunity for you to spread a message about your research, correct?
That's what I'm going to start the foundation for, just to make sure that everyone is aware of the risks involved with having a firearm in their home.
Now, although you're examining this case, you've never actually spoken to any of the witnesses involved, correct?
No, it was not necessary. I was hired to assess the gun inside of the home, so
You've never spoken to Jesse Duran.
I have not.
You've never spoken to the actual gun owner, Andy Park.
No, I assessed the weapon where it was located within the home, and that's all I was hired to do.
But you've never actually seen the weapon used in this case,
Oh,
correct?
ma'am.
And you've never been to the Park's home.
No, I was familiarized with the layout of the Park home due to the pictures I was provided with, however.
You have even declined an offer to examine the Park's home, correct?
Exactly, because it wasn't necessary for my research. I had everything that I needed to come to my conclusion.
You've never been in their bedroom closet,
I have not.
so you've never been where the actual safe is stored.
No, I am just familiar with the statement that Andy Park provided, which tells where the safe was in the Park home.
Now, you don't think Andy Park's storage of the gun was unreasonable?
No, but it was definitely not ideal, and I cannot stress that enough.
There's no indication that Sydney spent any amount of time in her parents' bedroom, was there?
Not an unusual amount of time. I'm sure as a child in the parents' home, there was some time spent there, but not an unusual amount.
And you also recognize the whole purpose of keeping a gun in the home would be lost if it were inaccessible, correct?
Yes, however, that does expose the family to risks such as accidental discharging, which is what happened in this case.
Thank you. No further questions.
There'll be no redirecting, Your Honor. I just ask that Dr. DeRosa be allowed to leave the stand at this time.
She may.
Thank you.
Next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense calls Terry Chapin to the stand. Aisha Ishmael for the defense. May I proceed? Good morning.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself to the court, spelling your last name for the record.
My name is Terry Chapin, C-H-A-P-I-N.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to play professional football for the Cleveland Browns, but I was cut after a fallout between me and Johnny Football over a picture on Twitter. I was hurt at first, but I got over it. I now get to travel around the world as a motivational speaker.
Where do you live?
I live at 21 Maple, Fairview, Midlands, the only house on the block, paid for cash.
Mr. Chapin, I would like to talk about your involvement in today's case. Now, do you know the Park and Duran family?
I do know them. I was seeing them all the time in the neighborhood. They would barbecue. I ate all the ribs one time. Never got another invite. I have no regrets.
I want to talk about their children, Cindy Park and Jesse Durant.
Pardon me?
Excuse me, can I move so I can see the witness? Is that all right?
How about
Over here, yep.
with the council?
Yes, John, thank you.
I want to talk about their children, Cindy Park and Jesse Durant. Do you know the children?
I do. I used to see Sydney and Jesse playing around all the time with their little squirt guns and Nerf guns. They're always loud, you know. Always seem to be there loud as I was trying to have my me time. I was trying to eat, go to sleep. I always got through my meal, but the nap, forget about it.
I want to talk about August 18, 2010. How did that morning begin for you?
I was woken up. Sounded like a gunshot coming from the Parks home. So I got out of bed, ran over there as fast as I could, and I had to stop, catch my breath a few times, but I made it eventually.
Mr. Chapin, you said you had to stop and catch your breath. How far is your home from the Park home?
Next door. But, you know, if I was in shape or a little fella, it would have been a little easier. I've never been a little fella, and I ain't been in shape since to stop playing football. So it took me a little longer to get there, but I got there.
Once you got to the Park's home, what did you see?
Well, I started to knock on the door, ring the doorbell, but then I realized if somebody was in the Parks home shooting, maybe announcing my presence was not the smartest idea. So I just looked in the front window and I saw a body on the ground. That's when I called the police to report it.
Did you ever go inside of the Park home?
Eventually, the front door was unlocked, so I was able to walk right in. And I saw that the body that was on the ground was Sydney Park, their daughter.
Was there anyone else in the home?
I did start hearing some noise, which scared me a little bit because I was in somebody else's home. There was a dead girl on the floor, and I had no weapon, no bat, or nothing to protect myself if I had to. But it turned out it was just Jesse Durant, you know, a little 10-year-old kid. That much I can handle if it came down to it.
When you saw Jesse Durant, how did he appear to you?
Physically, Jesse seemed fine. You know, he didn't have no wounds or no bumps or bruises like Sydney had. But he did have like this blank expression on his face, like he was in shock. You know, I'm not sure if whatever happened to Sydney had registered with him yet.
Did you ever ask Jesse any questions about what had happened?
Yeah, I tried to be as confident as possible. So I was trying to talk to him, get it out of him, ask him what happened. And
How did Jesse respond?
at first, he didn't say anything, but his lips started to quiver, you know, shaking real bad. Then he covered his mouth and his nose, and out of nowhere, he just started crying like hard, you know, like, you ever seen somebody cry with their mouth wide open but no sound is coming out? Crying hard like that. And, you know, after a while, he was able to compose himself and start talking a little bit, but his voice was real trembling. And he said that I did this, but it was a game that he and Sydney was playing.
Objection, Your Honor, these statements are hearsay.
Your Honor, these statements fall under the hearsay exception 8032 and excited utterance. We've laid the foundation of what happened throughout today's trial, that Jesse Durant and Sydney Park were playing a game and Sydney was shot. Terry Chapin came over immediately after and was the first one to talk to Jesse. We've laid the foundation that he was still under the stress of the event when he made these statements.
May I respond?
May?
That rule, to lay down a proper foundation for that exception, this witness would have to have personal knowledge of the actual event. Terry Chapin was not actually in the home for whatever it was that was happening, whatever may have been the stressful event, so no foundation has been laid.
Your Honor, 8032 says nothing about this witness having to have personal knowledge of what happened. We've laid the foundation throughout today's trial of what happened, and the defense has not contested that Sydney Park was shot on August 18, 2010, around the time that Terry Chapin was there. We know that Jesse Durant, through this witness, has started crying, his voice was trembling, his lips was trembling. We've laid the foundation that this is incited utterance under 8032.
May I respond?
You may.
At the beginning of this trial, we invoked these constructive sequestration of all witnesses besides party representatives. This witness was not here for the other parts of this trial and doesn't know what was happening for the other parts of this trial. This witness only knows what he's just testified to. And as he just testified, he was not there for whatever it was that might have been making Jesse cry, and can't testify that it was an exciting or stressful experience.
Your Honor, under 8032, I never said that Terry Chapin hurt the foundation. I'm saying the defense has laid the foundation that these events have occurred. And that's all that we need to satisfy the exception under 8032 and the cited utterance.
If this witness would like to state the hearsay statement, then this witness should be able to testify that there was an exciting an exciting event.
I'm going to overrule the objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Chapin, now we ask the question. How did Jesse respond when you asked him what had happened?
Like I was saying in a real trembling voice, Jesse said, I did this. But then he said that he and Sydney were playing a game and they didn't think it would actually happen.
Your Honor, at this time, I have no further questions.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, on the August, may I proceed?
You may.
On August 18th, 2010, on that morning, you called 911, correct?
That is correct.
At this point, it was 9:53 a.m., right?
Somewhere around that time.
You saw on your phone exactly that it was 9:53 a.m. at the time you called
I
911.
believe it was somewhere around there, yeah, I think so.
And when you called 911, you told them what you were seeing, right?
Yes,
And the 911 operator asked you if you were sure, is that right?
yes, you did.
She said you sounded intoxicated, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
This is an exception to hearsay under 803.3, I believe, then existing mental state, emotional or physical condition. The 911 operator was making a statement of sensory conditions. She said you sound intoxicated. She was describing what she was hearing, and it's an exception.
Your Honor, these are out-of-court statements being offered for the truth of the matter asserted. And we have no idea, there's no foundation laid that the declarant was perceiving some type of event, Your Honor. These are hearsay.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Motion to strike?
Motion granted.
Now, that morning, you had been sleeping over a vicious hangover, is that right?
Yeah, I had quite a bit of a headache.
The night before, you had been drinking more vodka Red Bulls than you could count. Is that true?
I went to the bar with a few friends, and on the TV
Sir?
they had the story of me losing my job with the football team, so I had a few drinks to try to forget about it, but I appreciate you to bring it back up.
So would it be correct to say that you had not just a few drinks, but more vodka Red Bulls than you could count, correct?
I could count them.
Is it your testimony today that you could count the vodka Red Bulls you had the evening before?
Sure.
Did you give a sworn statement? Did you give a sworn statement before coming to court today?
Yes,
Would you recognize the statement if I showed it to you today?
absolutely.
Line 32. Just 32. Okay. May I approach the witness?
You may.
Is this your sworn affidavit?
It looks to be, just swing through. Yep.
And is that your signature at the bottom?
Yes, ma'am.
And you had the opportunity to edit this statement if anything was incorrect, correct?
That's what I was told.
Now, read alongside me while I read aloud lines 31 to 32. I was already nauseated and blurry-eyed from the just 3 hours of sleep and more vodka Red Bulls, all of which contain significant amounts of vodka, than I could count. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, but that's just an expression. I can count them, of course. Pass math.
So, the night before you had been drinking heavily, correct?
I had a few drinks.
And the next morning you felt nauseated, correct?
Yeah.
Walking
Little
into the
bit.
park home, you were blurry-eyed, were you not?
Yeah, as you can see, I wear glasses, of course, and as you read currently, or just read, I was off 3 hours of sleep, so my eyes were a little blurry.
But let's talk about a few things you could see. When you walked into the Park home, you saw Jesse Duran, did you not?
Eventually, not at first.
And Jesse had a phone to his ear, correct?
Yeah, when I first saw Jesse, Jesse was actually hanging up the phone.
But you heard the last 3 words, right?
The same, yeah, he did say the same page, but I have no idea what he.
And that's when Jesse saw you, correct?
Yeah, sure.
And that's when he hung up. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's about right.
At this point, it was still 9:53, correct?
Somewhere around there, I'm pretty sure some minutes ticked off the clock.
Is your testimony today that it wasn't 9:53 a.m.?
No, when I got there, called the cops, it was around that time, but, you know, I'm pretty sure,
Would you like me to refresh your memory?
sure.
Would you like to see this again? Specifically, it was 9:53, right up here. Right where you said it was 9, operator. Describes the events of the day, and then he says it's 9:53. May I approach the witness?
You may.
All right, let's refer to line 21 and 22. I called 911 for my cell phone. It was 9:53 a.m.
Yes,
Then you describe how you walked into the Park home, correct?
yes,
You talk about the night before. You say you saw Jesse, correct?
mhm,
You said you spoke with some words with Jesse right here. Is this correct?
yes, me and Jesse were talking there, yes.
And then you heard some sirens, correct?
Yes,
And at this point you state in line 64, it was 9:54 a.m.
like I said, it was around that time.
So
Your
the
Honor,
conversation.
at this time, I would object to hearsay. She just read his sworn affidavit onto the record when there was no direct contradiction.
Your Honor, may I respond?
I'm gonna overrule.
Thank you, Your Honor. So everything that happened between the 911 phone call and the police arriving to the house happened between the minutes of 9:53 and 9:54 a.m. on August 18th. Is that correct?
Give or take?
So, at that point, that's when Jesse hung up the phone, correct?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance. May I be heard?
You may.
We're here to assess whether at the time of the incident, Jesse Duran was acting with intent. The plaintiff had to prove that Jesse Duran deliberately raised the gun, pulled the trigger, and shot Sidney Park. This line of questioning has nothing to do with that. It is irrelevant.
May I respond?
Yes.
This goes to truthfulness of Jesse Duran. The acts immediately after the deaths of Sidney Park do go to Jesse Duran's reliability. They do go towards the likelihood of Jesse's guilt and his actions.
Your Honor, whether Jesse Duran hung up or did not hang up the phone after he saw Terry Chapin, whether he called his mom or called 911, does not make any fact in this case more or less likely. It does not change whether at the time of the accident, when Sidney Park was shot, was Jesse Duran acting with any sort of intent. This line of questioning is irrelevant.
The plaintiff disagrees that this is not relevant. The actions of someone who allegedly shot someone else immediately after the shooting occurred would show the likelihood of whether or not it was an accident. The jury can decide at the end of this trial how much weight they give this, but we strongly believe that Jesse's action and demeanor immediately after the death of Sidney Park strongly points towards his guilt or lack thereof.
I'm gonna overrule the objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
So Jesse saw you and hung up the phone at 9:53 a.m., correct?
It's around that time, yes.
This was 8 or 7 minutes after you initially heard the gunshot, correct?
I believe so.
And you made eye contact with Jesse at this point, correct?
Yeah, I was trying to talk to Jesse, actually.
Jesse didn't say a word, did he?
Initially, like I said, Jesse didn't start talking until we were at the body of Sidney.
But-
He started crying and then
but
he was able
initially-
to.
Jesse was cold, right?
No, like I said, initially,
Jesse was expressionless, right?
Objection, I ask that my witness be able to answer the question.
He had answered sufficiently.
Go ahead and answer the question. Objection sustained for now. Go ahead.
like I said, initially, Jesse had a blank look on his face, like he was in shock. But when we got by the body, that's when he reacted, and I was able to get him to talk to me.
Is it your testimony today that Jesse was in shock?
He looked as if he could, like he was in shock, like he could have.
It's your testimony today that Jesse Duran looked like he was in shock when you saw him.
Jesse Duran had a blank expression on his face. To me, it looked like he could have been in shock based on what he saw.
Approaching opposing counsel, line 48. May I approach the witness?
Okay.
Let's read line 48 together, Mr. Chapin. Jesse, lines 48, Jesse didn't look shocked.
Your Honor,
Is
this
that correct?
impeachment is improper. She's laid no foundation that this witness's affidavit, whether his signature is on the back. But without that foundation, this impeachment is improper.
May I respond?
You may.
This is the exact same document we used earlier. Foundation was laid earlier. However, I'm happy to do it again if she wants. Now let's read line 38, excuse me. Jesse didn't look shocked. Did I read that correctly?
Not exactly.
What was wrong about it?
If you hand that to me, I can show you. Jesse, where we at, line 48?
Yes.
Didn't look shocked. There was no other way to explain how someone could be an expressionless after a friend was shot.
Actually, you misread that time. Even though Jesse didn't look shocked, there was no other way to explain how someone could be so cold and expressionless after a friend was shot.
There was no other way to explain it but being shot.
Now, he had a blank expression, didn't he?
Yes.
You said that you had already called an ambulance, or that you needed to call an ambulance, correct?
I had already phoned 911 by this time.
But Jesse said, no point, right?
Jesse might have said that.
Now, when you were in the house, Jesse was, Sydney Park was lying on her right side, correct?
I believe so, yes.
She was lying in the living room, correct?
Yes.
She was lying in a pool of blood, correct?
Yes, she was.
And Jesse Duran and you had a conversation about whether or not to call an ambulance, correct?
911 was already called.
But you did speak to Jesse Duran.
Yeah, I was talking to Jesse throughout the day. I was trying to get him to talk.
Yes. And Jesse Duran and you spoke about whether or not an ambulance was needed. And during this time, Jesse was blank and expressionless, correct?
Again, Jesse had a blank expression up until we got by the body of Sydney Park, which is when he reacted and started to talk.
So to clarify for the jury, you saw Jesse Duran, and that's when he hung up. And when you saw Jesse Duran, he hung up the phone, correct?
Asked and answered at this point, Your Honor.
I'm going to sustain that.
After you walked into the home, you had a short conversation with Jesse, and during which Jesse was cold and detached, correct?
Asked and answered.
Sustained.
Jesse did not begin to cry until you asked what had happened in the Park home. Is that correct?
That is true.
Before that, when you had words with him, he did not cry. Is that correct?
Again, before I asked Jesse what happened, when we were over Sydney Park's body, that's when he started to cry.
But redirecting you to my question, when you had other words with him before you asked about the incident, he was not crying. Correct or not?
That is true.
No further questions at this time.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Chapin,
Yes, ma'am.
why did you say that Jesse seemed shocked to you?
Because his face looked so blank, you know. It wasn't an initial shocked reaction, but he was staring at his best friend on the ground, and I couldn't explain it no other way without saying the word shocked. He didn't look like he was shocked, but there was no other way to explain the way he was looking.
When you walked into the home, do you know who Jesse was talking to on the phone?
I don't have the slightest clue.
Did you hear the entire conversation Jesse
I
had?
heard 3 words, the same page, and he hung up the phone.
No further questions.
time getting back your seat. I don't want to-
Appreciate that.
So,
At this time, the defense rests our case in chief and request a brief 5 to 10 minute recess.
how long do you have for your closing arguments?
9 minutes.
9 minutes each.
Well,
Let's take a, is it 9 minutes each or total?
9 minutes.
9 minutes each.
Let's take a 5-minute recess.
yes, Your Honor. It's all us.
I'll go find out.
Did the call record say Hayden or Andy? I thought it did, and then you asked us about the 20 seconds, and then
So it got in.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
It's evidence. You just need to put it on.
All right. Right. I,
To the other team.
no, no. I,
She was like, it don't look like 32. I'm trying to grab it.
I was watching. I thought what she did was fine. I thought the other team was just as bad. The witness was different. The witness was belligerent and, well, not belligerent, but whatever you call it. He was not cooperative.
But I thought it was on the verge of rude, I'm just saying.
Both of them were.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that's it.
frames.
Yeah. Those have been the two meetings. Is that like,
Yes.
Yep, it's been recorded. We just got 9 minutes. So, who don't need these signs?
well, the plaintiff.
You may be seated. All right, is the plaintiff ready to present his closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor. May I set up Demonstra's first?
You may.
May it please the court? Today, you've been presented with the two bodies in today's case. Sydney's dead body and Jesse Duran's body of lies. Jesse lied to you in the written statement provided to the police. Jesse lied when he said that he caught the gun. Today, it has been our burden to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that Jesse Duran committed an intentional shooting, and that under the laws of our state, Jesse's parent, Hayden Duran, must be held liable. To do this, we had to prove three things. One, that the defendant had custody and control over a minor child, meaning that Hayden Duran had custody of Jesse Duran. This is undisputed. Two, that the child committed an act of willful misconduct. Willful misconduct means that someone acts with the knowledge that a certain consequence is substantially likely to result from his or her actions. After years of playing video games depicting the deaths of players by guns, after years of being told by Hayden Duran that guns are dangerous, and after being told repeatedly never to go near one, Jesse Duran knew that it was substantially likely that when he pointed a gun at Sydney Park's head and pulled the trigger, that she would be hurt. We have proven number two to you. Number three, that the plaintiff suffered an injury or death. Andy Park lost her 11-year-old child on August 18th. They'll never be able to see her start middle school, much less graduate high school or walk down the aisle.